Another thing that happened this last week.
Hot D.
Yeah, Hot D. The House of the Dragon, which has been... I mean, don't get me wrong. I've been really, really enjoying The Acolyte, but there is something about House of the Dragon that has just like enchanted me. I just cannot get enough of it. Let's do spoiler free on this real quick. Go ahead.
I feel like I'm repeating myself every week, but like it's just also good. Like from the
I have a big gripe about this one.
Yeah, from the performances to the music to the like little things like costume design, like the way.
Do you watch any of the behind the scenes? Because after every episode, HBO on YouTube will release a couple of behind the scenes looks at the episode. And like there's armor that Aegon wears in this episode where they talked about it for like a whole 5 minutes about how they built it and they made it look like Valyrian steel and like the craftsmanship that goes into this show is fucking bonkers. There's a whole thing at Harrenhal. They built most of that interior and just have it raining inside like that shit's real, you know? And this is one of those things where like, this is why you have real sets and you don't film on the volume because you know that it's a real person in a real place and it feels real. Right. I have a gripe so there's you know what? I'm going to save it for when we get into spoilers.
I think I know what you're griping about, but I'll hold on to that.
Okay. So
in case I'm wrong.
House of the Dragon, The Burning Mill, episode 3. We're going to spoil it. If you've not seen it yet, go watch it. Come back. Tell us what you thought. Okay. Everyone's warned. So cold open on the Blackwells and the Brackens, who famously for all of eternity hate each other, right? You might remember that when Rhaenyra was hearing petitions for her hand in marriage, there was the little boy that just murks this other guy. The little boy's a Blackwell. The guy he kills is a Bracken. Right? So these guys have beef that has been cooked up for a long time. Now, also, there was a lot of confusion with this first sequence because the actor that plays Davos Blackwell, who's the other guy, posted a picture of his character on social media, and everyone jumped to conclusions and thought that he was Benjamin Blackwood, who is an entirely different character, and everyone jumped to that conclusion because he looks like that character, right?
See, this is why you don't go on social media. I didn't know any of this happened, and I was not confused at all.
Right. So, I am blissfully ignorant about everything.
Yeah, exactly.
It is worth pointing out, by the way. I've not read Fire and Blood. Like I don't know anything that happens really in that book. Though I've seen a bunch of people talk about Benji Blackwood, and apparently when they end up bringing him in, people are going to love him because he's a little psycho.
Okay, great.
Which I really thought it was him because the dude kind of looks like a psycho. So they're having a dispute over you move the rocks.
This rock.
Yeah. And now your cows are eating my grass, and and then they just like next shot is the Bracken guy, his own sword through his his fucking neck and everything, dead bodies everywhere.
Slowly zooms out. I love this sequence because it shows just how stupid war is, especially like two people are arguing over a rock.
Yeah.
And like their families have been at each other's throats for so long, no one even remembers why.
I think that's the cautionary tale, is that this is where Team Black and Team Green are headed. And that they've been fighting for so long that they don't know why. They're just fighting.
They don't know why. There's this stupid provocation and hundreds end up dead.
Yeah. And the Blackwells even have dragons.
Yeah. Also, there's a mill burning in the background of this shot.
Hence the episode. It's because in the book, it's the Battle of the Burning Mill. The thing that I got pissy about is like, show us the fucking battle. This is like in season 1.
I don't think they needed to.
I think they did.
I think they made their point that this is so stupid. Like,
I wanted to see the battle. And I'll tell you what it reminds me of. In season 1, in season 2, when Rob decides he's going to wage war against the crown, there is this famous battle in the book, the Battle of Whispering Wood. They didn't have the budget to show the battle. So Rob is like, oh, we're going to go into Whispering Wood. It's going to be a big battle. Next scene, he comes back. He's like, we won. We didn't have the budget for it, but we won. You just have to trust me. We did a really good job. We won the battle. That's what it felt like a little bit. And it would have been nice to see a little bit of action.
I feel like this battle, like to the story they're telling, this battle is so inconsequential.
I know, but I wanted to see it anyway. But they're all dead. Yes. That's the moral of the story. They're all dead. There's a really interesting conversation between Alicent and Helena, because like Helena's kind of coming unraveled a little bit, I think.
And I mean, understandably so.
Yeah, I mean, Jaehaerys went to the Backstreet Boys reunion tour.
Her last couple of weeks have not been great.
Yeah. I thought it was poignant that she was like, when you think about it, people's kids go to the Backstreet Boys reunion tour all the time. Mm-hmm. We're saying that, but if you're here for the first time, that's a way to get around saying something that YouTube will get very upset at us about. And she even says, like, I bet that the people that went to that funeral procession, like something about like they have as much like
they have more right to grief than I do, essentially.
Yeah, because it would make sense that lowborn people would have a higher incidence of like infant mortality or something. And Alicent is like, you're my favorite kid. You're the only kid I love. Yeah. So like, I'm really worried about you. And
Alicent, terrible mother, by the way.
Yeah, we've firmly established this.
Yeah. But at least she's doing her best with Helena.
Yeah. Helena just abruptly turns around and is like, I forgive you. Mm-hmm. And I thought for a second Alicent was going to have the gall to be like, for what? And it's like, bitch, you know what?
Yeah.
Because you're a terrible mother.
Also, you're fucking the hand of the king.
Yeah. Well, I'm not mad at her about that necessarily, because like, a woman's got needs. I'm pissed that it's Kristen, because fuck that guy.
Yeah.
But I think what she meant was, you're playing the game, and you're playing the game is what got my son killed.
I don't think it's, I think because Alicent doesn't really feel guilt about like politics. She feels a ton of guilt about fucking Crispy.
I think that's a huge problem.
It doesn't say good things about her as a human being, but I'm just saying like her motivations and what she feels the need. Like she wanted to confess to her father in the previous episode that I'm fucking Kristen Cole. And he's like, I don't want to hear it.
I've heard enough shit today.
Like, this is so clearly eating her up inside.
Yeah, which is weird. It's like, girl, your priorities. This is what happens when you get religious, man. Yeah. You start caring about shit that doesn't matter.
But Helena, with her neurodivergent seer powers, can tell that she's feeling very guilty about something and says, I forgive you. Like, I think as a means to just make her feel better.
Just like a blanket pardon.
Yeah.
You think she gets visions of like...
God, I hope not.
Well, she doesn't need visions. She can walk down them. Yeah. There's a council meeting where, so first of all, Crispy's first day on the job is Hand of the King, shitting his pants. And I thought it was really funny. They start with this angle on him that's like, it's like below looking up at him. Yep. And I've seen a bunch of jokes about how that's like Alicent's angle. And it's like, do you really think that Alicent's the one in that position? Because I'm pretty sure it's always the other way around.
We know she's not.
So I thought it was interesting. So Aegon's made his bros a part of the Kingsguard. Mm-hmm. And they are just there for the shits and giggles, right? Mm-hmm. This is an interesting juxtaposition, because Crispy is like devoted to the Kingsguard. It's his life. Yeah. And these motherfuckers are like, oh, Aegon just wants us to be able to hang out all the time. Yeah. And if we're Kingsguard, it'll be really easy, right? Yeah. And they're just like lounging around. Like he walks up to him and they're like, what's up, man? Like he walks into the council room and isn't challenged by anyone. And is like, what the fuck, guys? Like,
we talked about costumes in the spoiler free, but like, he doesn't have like the Hand of the King pin. He has like this necklace that goes around his armor. I thought that's a really
you
nice
think
touch.
he walks into that room and Allison's like, oh, I'm fucking that later. That looks fucking sharp. I don't think she actually thinks that. I think she just guilt fucks him where she's just feeling bad about herself.
Like a woman has needs.
Yeah. They're planning some war things. And Cole's like, I've had this great idea. And everyone's like, oh, like when he sent Eric to go kill Rhaenyra and that immediately failed. And he's like, well, Eric's an idiot. That's his fault. And they're like, no, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Anyway, what's your plan? And he's going to take a host out to, not to Harrenhal. I think he's going somewhere else.
Somewhere in the Riverlands.
Yeah, to drum up support for something. I don't know. It doesn't matter. He doesn't know what the fuck he's doing.
He's like, the Riverlands are the key to everything. Yeah. We secure the Riverlands, we win.
Aegon's like, I'll meet you out there with Dreamfire because I'm a fucking badass. Yeah. Everyone knows.
I want to ride my dragon and light some bitches on fire.
Let the record reflect that everyone in the Seven Kingdoms thinks I, Aegon, am a badass. And he like looks at the maester and he's like, write that the fuck down. He's like, okay. And everyone's like, that's a bad idea because as it turns out, wars are bad for your health.
People die in wars.
Aemon's kind of the one that like,
it's like, look, bro, like we got this.
We see a lot of Aemon, by the way, in this episode. Way more than I thought. There are a lot of dicks in this episode. Yeah. Fully erect penises with mouths on them.
We'll get there.
And I was like, I don't think you ever see that much in the original Game of Thrones. Because they have floppy dicks all over the place in Game of Thrones. But like actually like that, I was like, damn, that's pornographic. So Cole's gonna take some buddies out and they're gonna
do a war.
So he's about to leave and Allison's like, oh, do you want to meet my asshole brother? And he's like, not particularly, but hi, what's up? And he's like, I'm going with you. And he's like, fuck, no, I don't like this at all. You've got one of those faces. I think I'd just rather not. There's a conversation between him and Allison where he's like, hey, I'm going out to battle. Maybe this is the last time we see each other. At the very least, we'll be away from each other for a while. Can I have your titty napkin? And she's like, yeah, you can have my titty napkin.
Fine.
Yeah. And she gives it to him and he's like, oh, it's nice. Okay, thank you. And so he takes the boys out. He takes a little army out, and there's this fucking banger music cue when they're leaving King's Landing that I thought was really cool. By the way, Raymond Djawadi never misses. Every piece of music he's ever written for any show is just out of this world amazing. So Aegon gets fitted, right? We're doing this by location, by the way. So like all the shit that happens in King's Landing.
He gets fitted with Aegon the Conqueror's armor.
Yes, because it has to be because he's got the Conqueror's sword and he's got
his name
and the crown and everything. And he's like, you know what would be fucking cash money is if I also had his armor. And so they're like trying to fit it to him. And they're like, Aegon was a real man. So we actually have to like
tighten this down.
And Larys shows up. Larys is afoot. And and he walks in.
He's like, look, I need to talk to the king. And the king's always like, you can't talk to the king. He's like, look, if I don't talk to the king, he's gonna fucking die. So you better fucking let me talk to him.
So he does the thing that he did to Alicent in the first season.
Sniffs her feet?
No, before that.
Oh, right.
At least I hope. They had that conversation earlier in the season where he's got like the plant and he's like, oh, I like plants and this shouldn't grow here, but
you need to,
he has lots
prune weeds.
Yeah. He has a similar conversation where he's like, okay, so this is the rumor on the street. You in all of your infinite wisdom and bravery are going to fly out on your badass dragon with your badass armor and going to go to war.
Yeah.
That's so fucking heroic. Yeah. And Aegon's like, yeah, man. He's like, another thing I heard, this probably isn't true.
Not at all.
But I just thought you should know that some people, not me, are saying that maybe you were tricked by your counselors into going so that your mother, who has, by the way, and I can't stress this enough, amazing feet, can rule in your stead. And he's like, well, I'm easily manipulated and we're not going out on Sunfire today. He's like, maybe we'll go tomorrow. Not today. Mayhaps not fucking today.
Also, how would you like a job?
Yeah. Also, how would you like to be the master of whispers? And he was like,
I would like that almost as much as I like your mother's feet.
Yeah. Can I have both? And so he's like, great. Fucking, cool. I have gone up in the world.
Absolutely.
So I like this bit where like one of his Kingsguard bros are like, oh yeah, we're going out to the bar because my squire has never fucked a woman before, and yeah, we're gonna show him how to do it and everything. And he's like, but you're sworn to chastity. And they're like, what? When did that happen? And he was like, when you took the oath to the Kingsguard. And they're like,
shit, I think he's actually right.
Oh god, yeah. And then like they laugh about it, and then like the one guy on the right realizes he's not joking. He's like, dude, shut the fuck up. And he's like, oh. Well, in related news, I don't think I can do this job anymore. So he's like, we're gonna go out to the bar, and Aegon's like, you know what? That sounds really nice.
I deserve a night out.
There's this really neat one shot. We follow this guy named Ulf through
the city streets and into the bar,
and he's one of those guys, right? And you know exactly who I'm talking about. And I know at least one person in college that we went with called Russell.
Yeah.
Oh God, I can't remember what his name is.
I know who you're talking about.
He's one of those guys, and he is not a bad guy, but this is one of those guys where like everywhere they go, they're shaking hands, and they know everyone, and everyone likes him, and it's a whole thing. And he goes into a bar. We, by the way, see the woman that Aegon assaulted from season 1 is a barmaid here now, and he is spinning some bullshit, I think, where he's like, I am, as it turns out, the
bastard
brother
or whatever.
And I'm a Targaryen. And they're like, you don't look like a Targaryen. He's like, well, fuck you. And he makes a comment about how Rhaenyra
is the true queen or something.
Well, Jace is like the true king, I think, or something like that.
I think he said Rhaenyra.
He says Jaehaerys.
Okay.
Not Jaehaerys. Jaehaerys is Jace's name. His nephew, or whatever. And on cue, Aegon walks in with his bros, and everyone stands up, and he's the first motherfucker to be like, "All hail the king!" And everyone's like, "Yeah, fuck you." Everything he said is a lie. So they get a little sauced, and Aegon takes the squire
to the back room where everyone's fucking.
Yeah, and we see a fully erect dong in somebody's mouth.
Yep.
This is gonna get us hit on YouTube. They're gonna be like, "You can't monetize this."
Who gives a shit?
And I like how just for a second they stop and they look and they're like, "Damn." And they go to the next one, and there are more people that are doing shit.
Like he rips open the curtain. Oh, this is occupied. Goes on to the next one. Rips it open. Oh, this is occupied. Goes on to the next one. Oh, that's my brother.
That's my naked brother. And it was interesting seeing Aemond like this because in every scene, since we've gotten to know him from this actor, he is cold and calculating and kind of a badass all the time. And it felt voyeuristic where like we see him in a really vulnerable moment.
Yeah. So Aemond is, like you said, he's always very cold and calculating, and like that's the perception of himself that he wants to project to the world.
Sure.
But he has like anyone else, he has emotions and emotional needs and
emotional trauma.
And that's what he goes to this place and this particular prostitute to help process and deal with.
And of course, Aegon can't be gracious about anything.
Also, like Aemond, like being completely naked there is very symbolic of him, like making himself emotionally vulnerable in this place.
Yeah.
So then, of course, Aegon fucking starts laughing at him. And says, this whore's occupied. My brother's fucking her. Yeah. You can't fuck her right now.
Yeah. It takes him back to the Peak Dread days where he was the one that got picked on by everybody.
Aemon's like, you know what? Fuck it. He stands up, buck-ass naked.
He recovers pretty quick.
Yeah, says, you know what? You want to fuck her? Go ahead. One whore's the same as enough.
Yeah, he just stands up and turns her fucking buck-ass naked. Yeah, and was like, fuck y'all. Did you guys see my cool sapphire? And then leaves.
Yeah.
Certainly this is going to come back as some tension.
Aemon is not going to forget about that.
Yeah.
Like Aegon violated the one place where he felt truly comfortable.
Right. Okay. There's some weird shit that happens in this episode too. But it all starts off with Daemon, who is like, you know what? I'm going to go take Harrenhal all by my fucking self. And so he takes Caraxes to Harrenhal. And there's this fucking sweet POV shot of him on the dragon and Caraxes with his fucking long noodle boy neck and shit. And I like how like the people at Harrenhal see the dragon and everyone is like, oh God.
They all shit their pants.
Now, if you're not into the universe a whole bunch, you might not know that Aegon the Conqueror on Balerion the Black Dread, who is much larger than Vhagar, by the way, this huge fucking dragon, burned Harrenhal to the fucking ground. And that's why it is the way it is, right? And so everyone there, of course.
Oh God, it's a fucking dragon. We're all dead.
Yeah. So he like lands, and I like how he just walks in, one man with a sword, and he's like, this will be enough, right? And
I'm Daemon fucking Targaryen.
Yeah. And he walks through the place and you immediately get this like weird haunted house feel from it. Because Harrenhal is famously haunted, right? And he walks around. It's raining inside somehow.
Yes.
Everything's wet.
Because the castle's just that fucked up.
Yeah. He finds a guard. Before the guard, he just knocks him the fuck out. Yeah. He's like, I'm not dealing with this now. He walks into the one room where there are people.
Yes.
And they're all just sitting there about to eat dinner.
Yeah.
And Daemon's like,
I have come to take Harrenhal.
Harrenhal, your Harrenhal are belong to me now. And
the guy gets up out of his chair, walks on over, says, absolutely. Kneels down. I swear fealty to Rhaenyra, the true queen.
Yeah. He barely gets the sentence out, by the way. Harrenhal, like, I'm taking Harrenhal. And he's like, you're taking Harrenhal.
Yep, absolutely.
That's fine.
Cool. It's yours.
Yeah. I do like on his way into the room, he passes the Great Hall, which is where King Jaehaerys has that thing in the first scene of the show where they decide who the new king is, because that takes place at Harrenhal as well. It's important noting that Harrenhal has a vast tactical advantage because it's the largest keep. It's the largest castle in the Seven Kingdoms, and it's like right in the middle of the fucking Riverlands, which is where they want the war to be fought. And so they have him for dinner. And it's really, so they made him this really nice meal and shit. And he's like,
he was just sitting there like, I did not survive 1,000 battles just to be fucking poisoned.
Yeah. Like, I'm not going out like a bitch. Yeah. And they're like, come on.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Come on, man.
That would be a lot of work to poison your peas. And we learned that the guy that's there, who's a strong, does not like Larys very much, calls him Larys Clubfoot, and is like, that we don't like him here.
A little discriminatory, but good instincts.
It's one of those things where I'm sure that's not the reason he hates him. He just brings it up now because you know it hurts him a little bit. And also when he walks into when Daemon walks into this room, there's a woman that just like shows up that he takes special note of, and he's like, who the fuck is that? And she's like, what's up?
Yeah.
So he's in his bedroom later, and it's a nice touch that he's trying to like where the rain's coming through the ceiling, he's trying to like put buckets under it and everything, and he's like, well, what, this piece of shit, they couldn't have given me they also mentioned, by the way, that the way that the lord of this, I can't remember his name, they knew that Lionel and the other strong guy were murdered because they were burned to death in a castle where it's impossible to light a fire, pretty much, right? Yeah. Except for the fire that's like behind this guy while he's telling the story. he's got his sword. He's got the door barred with the sword.
Mm-hmm.
And because Daemon doesn't dress like that.
Yeah.
And like he sees someone walk up to the door and like manically is like trying to open it and then disappears. And he's like, oh, that's kind of weird. And he grabs Dark Sister, his Valyrian steel sword. And he's like, well, let's go see what the fuck this is. And so he has a little trot through Harrenhal again.
And he hears someone singing.
Yeah. And he's like, what the fuck is that? And he finds a room. And the first actor that played Rhaenyra reprises her role as young Rhaenyra, which is really nice to see her again, right? I can't remember her name. It doesn't matter. And she's literally sewing Jaehaerys' head back onto his body. And she's like, literally all I do is clean up your fucking messes. You're pathetic, pretty much. And he has this look. First of all, he's very taken aback, right? And he's really freaked out, but he also looks like he's got some genuine remorse,
and which would be a first for Daemon.
Yeah, and
Daemon, he of the crime hoodie.
Yes, and so he snaps out of it, and he's not in that room.
No, he is outside.
He's in front of their Godswood, and he's just like, "What did they put in those cookies?
What the fuck just happened?
Yeah, what the fuck?" And he turns around, and that lady that he saw earlier. Is like, you're gonna die in this place. Bye, and then walks off, right? And
what the fuck?
And Daemon always has like a snappy comeback and shit. He's just like, what is happening?
What?
I have no idea what's happening here. I know that this woman is a character from the book. She's like a witchy person. The conversation reminds me of in the 7th or 8th season of Game of Thrones, on Dragonstone, Melisandre and Varys have a conversation. Both of them were born in Essos. And Varys famously did not like magic or, any of that shit. And Melisandre very much liked it.
Melisandre was like, do you want to see my tits?
Yes. Well, he's a eunuch, so he doesn't.
Oh.
He does not care.
Damn.
Yeah.
The one person that doesn't work. Yeah,
because she'd be like, you want to see my tits? And he'd be like, nah, I'm good.
No.
You see one pair, you've seen them all. And she says to him, because he's like, why don't you run off to Essos? Because things here are going to get real fucking fast. And she's like, oh, I think I would like to, but I have to die in this place like you.
Oh.
And Varys is like, excuse me?
What?
Yeah. And it reminded me of that conversation. And I think they're going to bring Melisandre into the story. I don't think she's not in the book at all, but she's alive because she's famously very old. Yeah. And so since this is a character from the book, probably not Melisandre, but I thought it was really interesting. Really weird, spooky shit happening, right? All right. So at Dragonstone, they bury Eric and Eric. And
poor Eric.
Yeah. They have the whole they hit the theme of the burning mill home where they're like, we got these two groups, no one knows what the fuck they're fighting about anymore. And Rhaenyra's just trying to hold everybody together and everything, and like she's not had a great last couple of months and everything.
Like her advisors want to just, get the dragons together and go to war. Yeah. And she's like, dude, if we fight a war with dragons, everybody's going to die.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you understand how bad this is going to get.
It's interesting that they're going for a really obvious mutually assured destruction allegory from like the Cold War.
Yeah.
Like both sides have nuclear bombs, right? Yeah. And she has some good wisdom where she's like, what is just as scary as dragons is just the thought of a dragon coming to your home and killing you. So we could use that even, and we don't have to kill a bunch of people. She needs to be careful around these fucking guys because her counsel is like, what you should do? You should secrete yourself, which they said that. And I was like, the fuck? Could you have found a creepier fucking way to say that? They're like, why don't you go off to somewhere safe and we'll run the war for you? And Rhaenyra's like, that sounds like fucking treason. And the next word out of your mouth better be, I'm fucking sorry, or I'm going to kill you with my dragon. She gets up and walks away. And fucking Rhaenys stands up and she's like, listen, motherfuckers, that woman First of all, I really like her now. I didn't so much like her before. I really like her now. She's wearing the crown of Jaehaerys, the conciliator. Yes. Who, by the way, reigned for longer than Aegon the Conqueror. So you best watch your fucking step.
Reigned for longer than any Targaryen.
Yes. Because like the one guy, Rhaenyra says something and like the one guy like laughs at her condescendingly. And then like in the background, you see Rhaenys like do a, like,
excuse me?
You did not just fucking laugh at the queen.
Yeah.
And so she has a little word with everyone after Rhaenyra leaves. And she's like, the next person to pull shit like that again, I'm going to cut you. I'm just telling you right now, so you're fairly warned. I'm going to cut you with a knife. Bye. And
if you're especially unlucky, I might feed you to my dragon.
Yeah. Who's one of the bigger dragons in this world, by the way. Rhaenyra realizes that now that their kids are in play, she has a lot of weakness in her children. She has a lot of personal weakness. Yeah. And she knows that it isn't necessarily safe on Dragonstone. And so she tells Rhaena that she's going to take the boys to
Pentos.
Pentos. And she's like, I need you to raise these kids and be good to them, because who the fuck knows what's going to happen
I
here.
might never see him again.
And if everything here burns, at least there are Targaryens out in the world.
Yeah.
And Rhaena's
not a fan of this.
Nope. She's like, I would like to stay around and fight. And she's like, you don't have a fucking dragon, Rhaena. Like, what?
Well, Rhaena says you're sending me away because I don't have a dragon. And Rhaenyra does not deny this.
Yeah, she's like, that's not true.
Tell you what, I'm going to send you off with like 3 baby dragons and like 4 eggs.
Yeah.
So like you'll have dragons.
Yeah.
In like 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause it's like, yeah, we're sending dragons over and one of them can be yours. And she's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. It's like the size of a golf ball, but okay.
Yeah. She sees Rhaena and the boys off. And they show the dragon eggs. And one of them is going to be Rhaena's, and the other 3 are Daenerys' eggs.
Huh. I remember wanting to ask you about that because I know you're obsessive about all this shit.
Yeah, it's Drogon, Rhaegal, and Viserion.
Okay, cool.
And let me tell you that Daenerys receives those eggs. By the time she gets them, they're petrified dragon eggs. At her wedding to Khal Drogo that happens in Pentos.
Interesting.
So I think what probably ends up happening is, because you'll see, like, anytime there's a dragon egg in House of the Dragon, they have it so that it's like in a holder with embers and shit.
Yep.
I think if you don't keep them hot, they probably like calcify or whatever. So something bad probably happens there. Okay. So fucking Crispy and his boys are going to Harrenhal. Okay. So first of all, Alicent's brother, Gary, or whatever the fuck his name is, like, he's like, I do not sleep on the ground.
Yeah, we're gonna go to this inn. We're gonna drink some beer. We're gonna fuck some whores. It'll be great.
I don't know what you think you're doing out here, but I sleep in comfort, and we need to be within 2 miles of an inn at all times. And Cole's like, oh God, you're just like your sister, you motherfucker. And Cole has a realization, like the clouds kind of pass in front of and they realize they're out in the middle of nowhere with no cover. And he's like, oh my God,
we need to get out of here.
And then like over his shoulder, because meanwhile, Bela is running patrols to see if there are any armies leaving King's Landing. Yep. And up in the sky, she's on her dragon moon dancer, who has a little mohawk. He's adorable. Yeah. Sees the light reflecting off their armor.
She's like, oh.
And she's like, oh, is that an army down there?
Excuse me?
Now, Rhaenyra told her not to engage. Right? Mm-hmm. So she's like, okay, I won't engage, but I will fly at them at breakneck speed to scare the shit out of them. They will shit their pants. And so she fucking dives, right? And Cole is like, oh my God, that's a fuck,
let's go.
Yeah.
Get in the woods.
They start sprinting for the woods. And Bela's like, oh, they're not going to make it, I don't think.
Nope.
And they just make it. Yeah. They get into the tree line and she does this.
Bela has to pull up hard.
The dragon fight in this looked really good. Like, it's, you know how like the dragon stuff in season 1 looked kind of crunchy, and
it was okay.
Yeah. It's because they were doing it during COVID and it just didn't look very good. That looked really fucking good. Gary has learned his lesson, by the way.
He's like, okay, Captain Cole, whatever you say goes.
And like, I like how it goes like, no end, you fucking moron. Like, what the fuck's wrong with you? So Baela returns to Dragonstone, and it turns out that even though Daemon has gone away from Dragonstone, that Dragonstone kind of still has a Daemon. Because Baela, she's like, there was an army, by the way, and it was led by Crispy. And
she's like, how did you know?
Yeah, how do you know it was Crispy? You were supposed to be like doing recon. And she's like,
I might have dive bombed him a little bit.
I got close enough to smack his ass. Let me just say that. And she was like, but I told you not to engage. She's like, to be fair,
I didn't engage.
There
was no fire.
Yeah. There's no fight or anything.
She is so her father's daughter.
I know. It's so good. She looks like a badass on that dragon too. That actor in the behind the scenes, she had the time of her life because they shoot her on a buck. Like the saddle is real, but like obviously the rest of it isn't because dragons don't exist, unfortunately. That's why we can't have nice things. But she was thrilled to do those scenes. She thought it was really neat. Okay. There's a conversation between Rhaenyra and Mysaria. And Rhaenyra's like, so I set you free and you came back.
So it starts with Mysaria out on like a porch watching a dragon flying around.
Yeah, it's sea smoke, by the way. That's the gay one. Yes. Yeah. Why can't I remember his name right now? Laenor,
right?
Yeah, because apparently sea smoke is like
just cruising around.
Well, he's uneasy. He's bored or he's like unsettled. And Rhaenyra was like, so I set you free and you came back to warn me about Eric. And she's like, which one was Eric? And she's like, well, they both were. It's I don't.
Don't worry about it. The point is, you kind of saved my life.
Like, why? And Mysaria's like, you're gonna think I'm crazy, but you're the only one that's not a fucking monster, I don't think. Like, based on what I know of all these parties that I've observed, you are by far the least worst. In fact, you might actually be an all right person.
You're the one who is least of an asshole.
Yeah. Like, I went to Otto Hightower and I was like, here's an idea. Let's not have children in fighting pins. And then he tried to burn me alive.
That happened.
Yeah. And so you didn't do that. And so far, that's like you're on my ranking.
It's a low bar to clear, but you cleared it.
Yeah. And so she's like, okay, that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah.
So, like, what are we doing here? What is this? And Mysaria's like, okay, so first and foremost, I would very much like to kill Otto Hightower because he's a dick. But also, like, there are changes that need to be made, and you kind of seem like the person that would do that. So I think I'm on your side.
You want to give me a job?
Yeah. And she was like, well, you know shit about things that you shouldn't know about.
Yeah.
So Master of Whispers.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. By the way, the first duty of your job. What does Alicent do in her day-to-day?
Yeah.
And Mysaria's like, well, she writes to Kristen's face at like 6 a.m. And then she does it again at 8. And I think she has there's a small council meeting in there.
She like hangs out with Helena for like 5 minutes, tries to pretend Aegon and Aemon don't exist.
Like averts her gaze away from them. These are not children of mine.
And I guess every so often she goes out to the church to pray for the dead and light the candle and do all that shit.
So there's also this other thing we have to put in there. So Alicent sent Rhaenyra a letter that was like, sorry about your dead son.
Yeah.
And Rhaenyra didn't read it because she was, she was grieving and she didn't want to hear it, and while Rhaenyra is grieving the absence of her sons, she's cleaning up their toys, and she finds the raven that
she's letter and reads it this time.
I think this happens before she talks to Mysaria. So she's like, okay, let's play out a hypothetical.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say I want to talk to Alicent, and Mysari's like, easy. We'll slip her a note,
send her a letter,
and then we can do a meeting. And she's like
no.
that won't work. And I'll tell you why. Because if I got that note, I'd be like, fuck off, no way, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what else you got? And she's like, well, she's the Queen Dowager, and a lot of people, especially Kristen Cole, watch her. And
like,
Larys.
It's creepy how much Kristen Cole and Larys watch her.
Yeah, like you can't talk to Alicent because of Crispy. You can't talk to Alicent's feet because of Larys. Like this is just well known in the kingdom, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so she's like, okay, I need you to figure out a way. And Mysari's like, actually, you know, an interesting thing is that when you don't look like royalty, no one gives a fuck about you.
Mm-hmm.
And then Rhaenyra has this moment where she's like, I know this actually, because in the first season,
she went to the whorehouse with Daemon.
Yeah, it dressed up like a boy, and no one knew who she was. And she's like, that's a fucking good idea.
Shit, here we go.
And Mysari's like, actually, you know what else she does a lot? She gets really guilty about writing Crispy's face, and then she goes to church to pray for it. Or pray about it.
Mm-hmm.
And they both have a look, and you see this light bulb turn on, right?
That's what we're doing.
And the next shot is them sailing to King's Landing, right? Now, I will remind you, or I'll tell you, that this entire sequence does not happen in the book. And I know that like some fans are upset about it. I think it's brilliant. I think it's absolutely brilliant. And we'll talk about the implication here in a second. Rhaenyra is doing a sister act.
She dressed up as a nun.
She's a septa, but she's a nun. She's got her like Kingsguard guy with her who's like a priest or whatever. And they walk through the King's Landing. No one gives them a second glance. Yeah. They pull up to the sept, which is not the great sept of Baelor, by the way. It hasn't been built yet.
It's just a church.
It's just a regular sept.
Like they walk up, they see fucking Alicent and her replacement Kingsguard now that Kristen's out of town.
Who are the dumbasses, I think. Yeah. Which I just realized is another great way for them to be like, oh, this is how this was able to happen. It's because she's got fucking Dumb and Dumber, you know. Yeah. So like her Kingsguard guy is like, okay, go in and do your thing. I'm gonna go like diddle some boys for the part. Yeah. And like, you know, fucks up. And like he sits on, like he looks around. He's like, all right, just in case anyone sees me, here's my Bible. And he like opens it and like makes a big show out of reading it and shit. And Rhaenyra goes into the sept where, as children, she and Alicent prayed to the mother. Yep. And Alicent is there with her candles and shit. And Rhaenyra kneels down next to her, and this realization where like Alicent's not making eye contact because Alicent's like, God, get it. I'm trying to pray, get a fucking clue. And then like she sits down and she's like, the fuck is this bitch? And she looks over and she realizes it's Rhaenyra and she's like, and Rhaenyra has a knife. Yeah. Like pulls out a knife and grabs her. And
she's like, fucking calm down.
Yeah. Alicent's like, by the way, Alicent, I don't think Alicent's scared at all. I think she actually knows Rhaenyra. I think she's
more startled than she's scared.
And basically Alicent's like, so what happens here? You stab me and then you get killed? And she's like, I'll be honest, I haven't thought it out that far.
I just knew I needed to talk to you.
Yeah. I'm really surprised I made it this far. I'm not going to lie.
Like, can we not have a war? Because like that's going to kill a lot of people and it's not going to be so great. Like, can we not do this?
Yeah. And
Alicent's like,
they start squabbling over the thing where she like Rhaenyra's like, it's my fucking throne. And Alicent's like, no, the fuck it's not. Like your father changed his mind. Yep. And she's like, you're a fucking liar. And she's like, I am at times cruel, but I'm never untrue. And then Rhaenyra's like, actually, that makes sense because that's actually true about her, right?
So as long as you're not lying, can you tell me, what he said?
What exactly did he say?
The precise words he used?
And she was like, he said Aegon's name. Like he was on his deathbed. He was high as fuck on milk of the poppy. He was dying. He said Aegon's name. And then he said that Aegon was the prince that was promised or whatever.
To unite the kingdoms.
And Rhaenyra's like,
wait,
is that like he used those exact words? That's an exact
quote.
Yeah. And she's like, yeah, but it's a fucking big deal. And she's like, Jesus fucking Christ.
He told you about the song of Ice and Fire?
Yeah, I like that. She's like, she told you about like the Song of Ice and Fire, and she's like,
the fuck.
She has this look like the what now? And
Rhaenyra's like, shit, he didn't tell you.
Yeah. So
oh god,
this was a story he used to tell about Aegon the Conqueror. You stupid bitch, pretty much. And Alicent's like, oh,
well, regardless, we're a little bit too late for that.
Yeah.
Like,
and Alicent doubles down and it was like, it wasn't a mistake. That's not what happened. But you know that she knows that it's.
I don't know that she does.
I think she does. I know she does because it's what the showrunner said in the behind the scenes. So it's easy for me to be like, oh, I know. But she, like, the confusion was cleared in this scene between the two characters. Mm-hmm. And I think it's an interesting, they both walk away from the scene enormously changed, but nothing changes.
Yep.
Which I think is really neat, right? So Rhaenyra now knows for sure that she is righteous, that she's doing the right thing, and that not only is it her throne by right, but it is her job to protect the realm from death.
Yep.
Alicent just realized that her entire life is a lie. And that because she said in her conversation with Rhaenyra, she says the words, you know what Aegon is, right? Mm-hmm. So she's like, I did.
She knows Aegon is incredibly fucked up.
Yeah.
Like from the very first time.
She's like, I'm the reason why.
Yeah, like she walked in season 1 and saw him jerking off over the city. Like, she knows
on the small folk. Yeah. So they both, like, Rhaenyra is emboldened, and she knows that what she's doing is right. Alicent can't turn back. I mean, it's like it. What are you going to do now? Even if she went and told Aegon, this was a mistake. We need to surrender or whatever.
Yeah. Aegon isn't having it.
Yeah, no, like Cole is the hand of, like, no one would let this happen now.
So Aegon lost his son and heir. He is furious. He wants blood.
Yeah.
Cole fucking hates Rhaenyra. He's not gonna back down.
Yeah.
Aemond has his own trauma, but he's like, he knows that Jaehaerys, whatever the kid's name was killed because they couldn't find him.
Yeah.
Like,
I like that they clear the air about that, by the way. Where I think both of them walk away from that believing that the other one didn't have that kid killed. So I think Rhaenyra is like, okay, Alicent.
Rhaenyra's like, look, I didn't order that. That was all Daemon.
Yeah, and Alicent's like, I know, I didn't do that. That was all fucking Aemond.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, well, that's nice to know at least.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, why do we both have blonde, long-haired psychopaths?
Yeah. Why is everyone named Aegon?
Fucking Targaryens, like, this would all be so much simpler if they gave everyone different names.
You know what's really funny is
you're Al, you're Bob, you're Charlie,
Steve.
you're Dave.
Yeah,
exactly.
One of Rhaenyra's kids is named Aegon too, just to add another layer of confusion.
Fucking Targaryens, dude.
Aegon the Younger, as he was called. I happen to know from the look at next week's episode is a huge battle.
Okay,
and
I presume Harrenhal.
Rook's Rest.
Okay.
Which I've been able to live in this weird state of being where I know certain things about the book, but they're not spoiled for me.
Okay.
So, like, I know that Rook's Rest is a big deal.
Okay.
And I know that something really bad is going to happen to someone.
Okay.
I think it's probably going to be Rhaenys, by the way, because there was that scene with her and Corlys.
Yeah,
because they're just having their best life.
Yeah,
like in the last episode, we kind of forgot to mention it. Like, first of all, I'm really happy for her that her and Corlys are still fucking.
Yeah,
right. Like, there's a whole scene with them in bed.
They are probably the happiest couple in this entire show.
Or at least Corlys is like, you know. Yeah. And she brings him a fucking picnic in this one, and I like how, because she's like, hey, let's make Rhaena the heir to Driftmark, and he's like, or we just have more kids. And she's like, how old do you think I am? Like, also, we're at war.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck do you think is going to happen?
Well, Corlys's exact objection is that she doesn't know anything about boats. And she's like, neither does your fucking 6-year-old kid who is right now your heir.
Neither did Luke.
Yeah.
Luke would blow chunks if he got on a boat.
None of them know anything about boats.
Yeah, no one's going to be the sailor you are, Coral.
Yeah.
It's like, Jesus, calm the fuck down. Yeah, it's, like I said, I've not read the book, but I recognize a screenwriting trick when I see it. And they are making us want to fall in love with Rhaenys. And in Game of Thrones, that's a red fucking flag because the people you fall in love with are the ones that die.
I'm sad now.
Yeah. I'm trying to prepare myself. I think I'm more sad that Meleys might die because those dragons are precious to me. I love them. I even love Vhagar.
You love dragons more than you love people.
Yeah. Dragons and dogs. Yeah, that checks. Yeah.